Do you ever feel like you're trapped in a cycle of endless planning but no execution? Like you're standing at the edge of a massive cliff, staring at your goals on the other side, but something holds you back from leaping? Maybe it's fear, maybe it's doubt, or maybe it's that tiny voice whispering, "What if I fail?" We all know the feeling, wanting change so badly that it keeps you awake at night, but still waking up the next morning stuck in the same place. The truth is, every great achievement in history was built on action, not thought. Action is messy, imperfect, and often scary, but it's also the only bridge that connects where you are now to where you want to be. This isn't about motivation. Motivation is fleeting, it's unreliable, like a friend who only shows up when things are easy. What you need is the ability to force yourself to take action, even when every fiber of your being screams to stay comfortable. Because the secret to success lies not in waiting for the perfect moment, but in creating it. What if I told you there's a way to hack your brain into becoming an action taker? To stop procrastinating, stop hesitating, and start moving toward the life you've always imagined. It's not magic. It's science, discipline, and a mindset shift that can transform your world. And by the end of this audiobook, you'll have the tools to force yourself to take action, no matter how big or small the task. But here's the catch. You have to stick with me. Don't just listen. Commit to implementing what you learn. Think about this as your first step toward building the life you've been too afraid to chase. So, are you ready? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Myth of Motivation. Let's start with a question. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I just need to feel ready"? It's so easy to believe that once you feel motivated, everything will fall into place. But days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly you're still in the same spot, waiting for that magical feeling to arrive. Here's the harsh reality. Motivation is unreliable. It's like chasing a mirage in the desert. It looks promising, but every time you get closer, it fades away. Think about this. Have you ever started something you were dreading? Cleaning your room, going to the gym, finishing that assignment, and after 5 or 10 minutes you started feeling better, more energized, even motivated. That's because motivation doesn't come before action. It follows it. So why do we keep waiting? It's because we've been conditioned to believe that discomfort is something to avoid. But what if discomfort is actually the secret ingredient to growth? What if leaning into that resistance is the key to unlocking your potential? The first step is understanding that your brain is wired for survival, not progress. It's programmed to keep you safe, to conserve energy, and to avoid pain. So every time you consider doing something hard, your mind will come up with 1,000 excuses. It's too late to start now. What if I fail? I'll just do it tomorrow. But here's the truth. The life you want is on the other side of that discomfort. It's not about waiting for courage. It's about acting in spite of the fear, in spite of the doubt. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below, there's everything you've ever wanted. A fulfilling career, financial freedom, a healthier body, better relationships. But the only way to get there is to jump. The catch? You won't feel ready. Not now, not ever. But if you don't jump, you stay where you are. You have two choices. You can let fear and hesitation keep you stuck, or you can force yourself to take the leap, knowing the net will appear once you're in motion. This is where action comes in. And it's not about massive, overwhelming changes. It's about small, consistent steps, repeated over and over until they become second nature. Now, I want you to reflect on this. What's one area of your life where you've been waiting for the perfect moment? Maybe it's starting that project you've been dreaming of. Maybe it's having a tough conversation you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, write it down, not later. Now, Because here's the thing, the moment you start moving, even if it's imperfect, even if it's messy, you begin to build momentum. And momentum is what turns action into habit, and habit into transformation. So, you've written it down, that one thing you've been putting off. Maybe it's intimidating, or maybe it feels like the stakes are too high. But here's the truth. Inaction is costing you more than failure ever will. Think about that for a second. Every time you hesitate, you're giving up time you can't get back. And here's what's even scarier. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. Procrastination isn't just a habit. It's a trap. The more you indulge in it, the stronger its grip becomes. But let me tell you something powerful. The human brain is remarkably adaptable. You're not stuck in your habits or your excuses. You've just trained yourself to believe you are. What if I told you that taking action, forcing yourself to move, can actually rewire your brain? Neuroscience proves this. Every time you do something uncomfortable, your brain creates new neural pathways. At first, it feels awkward, even painful, like trying to write with your non-dominant hand. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. Those pathways strengthen, and eventually, what once felt impossible becomes automatic. Here's an example. Have you ever started a fitness routine? The first few workouts feel brutal. Your muscles ache, you're exhausted, and it's tempting to quit. But after a few weeks, something shifts. You feel stronger, you have more energy, and suddenly it's not a struggle, it's a part of your life. That's the power of consistency. The key isn't to rely on willpower or motivation. It's to trick your brain into action before it has a chance to argue. One strategy that works is called the 5-second rule. Developed by Mel Robbins, this simple technique is a game changer. Here's how it works. The moment you feel hesitation creeping in, whether it's hitting snooze on your alarm or delaying an important task, count backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then move. No thinking, no negotiating, just move. Why does this work? Because it interrupts your brain's autopilot mode. It breaks the cycle of overthinking and creates a window for action. Let's practice it. Right now, think about one small action you can take toward that thing you wrote down earlier. Maybe it's sending an email, setting a timer, or clearing your workspace. Whatever it is, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then go. It's that simple. And the more you use it, the more you'll notice something incredible happening. You'll stop waiting for motivation and you'll start building confidence. Confidence doesn't come from success. It comes from proving to yourself that you can show up, even when it's hard. Here's the truth you need to hold on to. The first step is always the hardest. But once you take it, you've already done the most difficult part. The rest is just momentum. So, let me leave you with this challenge. In the next 24 hours, use the 5-second rule to tackle one thing you've been avoiding. No matter how small or insignificant it seems, do it. You'll be amazed at how this one action can create a ripple effect in your life. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Chapter 2. Building a system for action. You've taken that first step, or at least you've committed to taking it. That's a win, but it's just the beginning. The real challenge is turning that one small action into a habit, into a system you can rely on, even when life throws distractions and chaos your way. Here's something most people get wrong about taking action. They think it's about discipline. But discipline alone is like a muscle. It gets tired. The longer you rely on it, the more likely it is to fail. The truth is, success isn't about having superhuman willpower. It's about creating a system that eliminates the need for willpower. When your environment, habits, and mindset are aligned, taking action becomes the default, not the exception. So how do you build this kind of system? Let's start with your environment. Whether you realize it or not, Your surroundings are constantly influencing your behavior. If your workspace is cluttered, your phone is buzzing every few seconds, or your couch is calling your name, it's no wonder you struggle to focus. Here's a small but powerful tweak. Design your environment for action. Remove distractions, organize your tools, and make the path to progress as frictionless as possible. If you're trying to work out, set your workout clothes by your bed the night before. If you're writing a report, close all irrelevant tabs and put your phone in another room. This isn't about willpower, it's about making action easier than avoidance. Now, let's talk about your habits. Habits are the backbone of your system. But here's the catch. Building habits takes effort, especially at the beginning. That's why you need to start small. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, describes the concept of habit stacking. It's simple. Take an existing habit and stack a new one on top of it. For example, if you already drink coffee every morning, use that as a trigger to journal for 5 minutes, plan your day, or do one productive task. Here's why this works. Your brain loves patterns. When you link a new habit to something you're already doing, it feels natural instead of forced. But even with habit stacking, there's one key ingredient you can't ignore: rewards. Your brain craves positive reinforcement. When you complete a task, celebrate it. This doesn't mean treating yourself to a big splurge. It can be as simple as taking a deep breath, smiling, or acknowledging your progress. Why is this important? Because every time you reward yourself, you're training your brain to associate action with pleasure instead of resistance. Let's reflect for a moment. Think about a time when you were proud of yourself, when you accomplished something that felt hard or uncomfortable. Remember that feeling of satisfaction, of proving to yourself that you're capable. That's the reward we're aiming for every day. Finally, we need to address your mindset. This is the foundation of your system. Without the right mindset, even the best habits and environments will fail. One of the most common mindset traps is the all-or-nothing mentality. You've probably said something like this to yourself. If I can't do it perfectly, why bother doing it at all? But perfection is a lie. It's an excuse disguised as a goal. The most successful people aren't perfect. They're consistent. They show up even when it's messy, even when they don't feel like it. Here's a mantra to remember. Progress, not perfection. Every small step you take matters. Every imperfect action you make is a vote for the person you want to become. This is how you create a system for action. Not by relying on discipline, but by aligning your environment, habits, and mindset so they work for you instead of against you. Let's face it, no matter how well you design your environment or how strong your habits become, there will be days when everything feels harder than it should. Days when obstacles show up uninvited, whether it's a bad mood, unexpected setbacks, or just plain fatigue. Here's the thing about obstacles. They're not the enemy. In fact, they're part of the process. What separates those who succeed from those who quit isn't the absence of challenges. It's how they respond to them. Imagine this. You're driving to a destination, and suddenly you hit a roadblock. Do you turn around and go home? Of course not. You find a detour. The same principle applies to your goals. Obstacles aren't stop signs. They're guideposts, forcing you to adjust your approach and grow stronger in the process. But how do you stay on track when the road feels impossible? The first step is to prepare for resistance. Think of resistance as the voice in your head that tells you to quit. It sounds logical, even comforting. Take a break. Try again tomorrow. But resistance is a liar. Its only purpose is to keep you in your comfort zone. To beat resistance, you need to anticipate it. Ask yourself, what's the hardest part of this task? What excuses am I likely to make? Then create a plan to counter those excuses. If you're too tired to work out after work, schedule it for the morning. If you know you'll be tempted to scroll through social media, set a timer or block distracting apps. Another strategy is to break tasks into smaller pieces. Sometimes the reason you feel stuck is that the task in front of you feels overwhelming. The solution? Shrink it down until it feels manageable. Instead of saying, I need to write a 10-page report, tell yourself, I'll write the first sentence. Here's why this works. Once you start, momentum kicks in. That first sentence leads to the second, and before you know it, you're in the flow. Starting small removes the psychological barrier of too much and replaces it with just enough. Now, let's talk about failure. It's inevitable, and yet, so many of us let the fear of failure stop us before we even begin. But here's what you need to remember. Failure is feedback. It's not a reflection of your worth or your ability. It's a tool to learn and grow. Think about a toddler learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times, but do they give up? Number. They don't see falling as failure. They see it as part of the process. You're no different. Every setback you encounter is teaching you something valuable, if you're willing to listen. One way to reframe failure is to practice what psychologists call a growth mindset. Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence that you're not good enough, see them as opportunities to improve. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? Here's a quick exercise. Think about a recent failure or setback. Instead of beating yourself up over it, write down 3 things you learned from the experience. This simple act shifts your focus from shame to growth. Finally, let's address the importance of accountability. Left to our own devices, it's easy to let excuses win. But when you involve someone else in your goals, whether it's a friend, a mentor, or even a coach, you create an extra layer of commitment. Why does this work? Because accountability taps into our desire to maintain our word and avoid letting others down. It's not about shame. It's about having someone in your corner who reminds you of your potential when you forget it yourself. If you don't have an accountability partner yet, find one. It could be someone with similar goals or simply someone who believes in you. Share your plans with them, check in regularly, and celebrate your progress together. Obstacles will always be part of the journey, but they don't have to derail you. By preparing for resistance, breaking tasks into manageable steps, reframing failure, and leaning on accountability, you'll stay on track, even when the road gets rough. Chapter 3. The Science of Momentum. We've talked about how to take action and how to build systems that help you stay on track. But there's one more critical piece to this puzzle. Momentum. Momentum is the force that makes everything easier. It's the snowball effect, the fuel that turns a single action into a wave of productivity. And here's the thing. Once you understand how momentum works, you can make progress feel almost effortless. But first, let's address a misconception. Many people think momentum is something you either have or don't have. They believe that once they get into the groove, everything will be smooth sailing. But that's not how it works. Momentum doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's something you build intentionally, step by step. Here's how it works. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you create energy. At first, it's just a flicker, but over time, those small actions accumulate, gaining strength. And just like a car that takes a little time to get up to speed, momentum builds gradually until it becomes unstoppable. Imagine this. You're pushing a boulder up a hill. At first, it's heavy, and every inch feels like a battle. But as you push, the boulder gains momentum. The harder you push, the easier it gets. Eventually you reach the top and the boulder begins to roll down the other side. From that point on, it's all downhill. Effortless progress. That's the power of momentum. But how do you start building it? The key is small wins. Every time you accomplish something, no matter how tiny, you're creating momentum. It's like adding one more piece to a puzzle. At first, the picture might not be clear, but each piece adds to the whole. Here's a strategy you can use right now. Set mini goals. These are small, bite-sized actions that you can achieve quickly. They might seem insignificant on their own, but together they add up. For example, if you're writing a book, your mini goal might be to write 200 words a day. If you're working on a fitness goal, it could be a 10-minute workout. The beauty of mini goals is that they create a sense of accomplishment. Every time you check something off your list, you reinforce the idea that progress is happening. And when you do this consistently, you build momentum. But don't stop there. The next step is to make momentum irresistible. Here's a trick. Reward yourself after every mini goal you complete. This might sound simple, but rewards are powerful motivators. They signal to your brain, this is good, this is progress. For example, if you've completed your 200 words, take a moment to acknowledge your success. Maybe you treat yourself to a break, or you give yourself permission to watch your favorite show for 30 minutes. Whatever it is, make sure you celebrate. This is how you fuel your momentum. But even with rewards, there will be days when it feels harder to push. When that happens, remember this. Momentum doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. Sometimes you won't feel like pushing that boulder up the hill. That's okay. But the key is to keep going, even when it feels like you're not making much progress. When you continue showing up, you create a flow that makes it easier to keep going, even on the tough days. Let's continue our journey through momentum, this time focusing on consistency, the secret ingredient that keeps your momentum flowing, even when you face setbacks. Consistency isn't glamorous. It's not about huge bursts of effort or instant results. It's about showing up every single day, doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. In fact, consistency is the difference between those who achieve their goals and those who let them slip away. The beauty of consistency is that it doesn't require a perfect plan, and it doesn't need perfect conditions. It just needs you to keep moving forward, even if it's one small step at a time. Think about the most successful people you know, whether they're athletes, entrepreneurs, or artists. Their success isn't based on moments of inspiration or bursts of motivation. It's based on showing up every day, doing the work, and trusting the process. You might not see immediate results, and that's okay. The key is that each action, no matter how small, compounds over time. Just like interest in a savings account, small actions build up, slowly but surely, into something substantial. So, how do you stay consistent when the initial excitement fades or when distractions start to creep in? Here are a few strategies that will help you stick with it, even on the toughest days. 1. Create non-negotiable routines. Routines eliminate the need for motivation because they turn action into habit. When something is part of your daily or weekly schedule, it becomes a must-do instead of a maybe later. If you're working on a long-term goal, dedicate a specific time each day to it and guard that time with everything you've got. 2. Track your progress. There's something powerful about seeing how far you've come. Whether it's a simple checklist, a journal, or a spreadsheet, tracking your progress gives you visual proof that you're moving forward. Every time you check off a task, you reinforce the idea that you're making progress, and that boosts your momentum. 3. Embrace the 2-day rule. This rule is simple but effective. Never allow yourself to skip 2 days in a row. If you're trying to develop a habit, whether it's working out, writing, or studying, there will be days when you miss the mark. But the key is not to let it slide into an excuse for the next day. If you miss one day, get back on track the next. This keeps you from falling off course for too long. 4. Stay connected to your why. The deeper your reasons for taking action, the more likely you are to stay consistent. When you're tempted to quit, remind yourself why you started in the first place. Is it to create the life you want? To become the person you were meant to be? Your why should be powerful enough to pull you through on days when your motivation is low. Consistency doesn't mean doing everything perfectly every time. It means showing up and putting in the effort, even if you're not at your best. The key is not to judge yourself too harshly. Even on days when you feel like you're doing less than you'd like, trust that every bit of progress counts. Now, you might be wondering, how do I make sure my momentum doesn't fizzle out? The answer is simple. Keep it small, keep it consistent, and keep it rewarding. If your goals are too big or too overwhelming, momentum will feel like a distant dream. But if you break them down into manageable chunks, keep track of your small wins, and reward yourself along the way, momentum becomes a powerful force that propels you forward. Remember, momentum isn't about sprinting to the finish line. It's about creating a wave of action that becomes unstoppable. The more consistent you are, the faster that wave will grow. Chapter 4: Overcoming Setbacks and Staying Resilient. So far, we've discussed the power of taking action, building systems, and using momentum to push you forward. But here's a cold, hard truth. Setbacks are inevitable. No matter how perfect your plan is, no matter how consistent you are, life will throw challenges your way. You'll hit obstacles, face failures, and experience moments when things don't go as planned. But here's the good news. Setbacks don't define you, they refine you. Think about it this way. Every setback is an opportunity to learn, grow, and come back stronger. Every time you face resistance, you're being tested. And how you respond to that test is what separates the dreamers from the doers. So how do you handle setbacks without losing your momentum or confidence? Here are some strategies that will help you stay resilient when life tries to knock you down. 1. Reframe your perspective on failure. Many people fear failure, but the truth is, failure is just feedback. It's not the end of the road. It's a sign that you're pushing your limits and stepping outside your comfort zone. Take a moment to think back to a time when you failed at something. Did you learn something valuable from that experience? Did it push you to be better, work smarter, or develop new skills? I'm willing to bet that the answer is yes. The key to overcoming setbacks is reframing failure as an essential part of success. Instead of saying, "I failed," "This isn't meant for me," try saying, "I failed. This is part of my growth, and I will learn from it." When you view failure as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock, you become unstoppable. 2. Accept that setbacks are part of the process. The first step to resilience is acceptance. Setbacks are not interruptions to your journey. They are part of the journey. Every success story you hear, every person who's achieved greatness, has encountered failure and obstacles along the way. This is where most people go wrong. They hit a setback, get discouraged, and assume they're not cut out for success. But the truth is, every time you face a challenge, you're getting closer to your goal. If you expect setbacks to happen, they won't derail you when they do. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself, "What can I learn from this?" 3. Cultivate emotional resilience. Emotional resilience is the ability to bounce back after setbacks, to keep going even when things don't go according to plan. It's about controlling your emotional reactions and not letting frustration, disappointment, or fear take over. One way to build emotional resilience is by practicing self-compassion. When things go wrong, it's easy to beat yourself up. You might think, "I'm not good enough," or "I should have known better." But this kind of thinking only makes things worse. Instead, practice being kind to yourself. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend who's struggling. Encourage yourself Remind yourself that setbacks happen to everyone and reassure yourself that this is just part of the process. Remember, you are not your setbacks. They don't define you and they don't diminish your worth. They simply give you the chance to prove that you can overcome them. 4. Stay connected to your why. When setbacks hit, it's easy to lose sight of your goals. The vision you once had might start to feel distant, or you might begin questioning if it's all worth it. This is why staying connected to your why is crucial. Your why is the driving force behind everything you do. It's the reason you push through the tough days, the thing that keeps you going when motivation is low. When you face setbacks, remind yourself why you started in the first place. If your why is strong enough, no setback will ever be able to stop you. 5. Use setbacks to fuel your growth. Every setback is a lesson in disguise. Maybe you've been pushing too hard without taking care of your mental health. Maybe you've been trying to do everything on your own instead of asking for help. Or maybe you've been relying too heavily on motivation instead of creating systems for action. Whatever the lesson is, take it to heart. Don't let a setback go to waste. Use it to adjust your approach, improve your strategy, and come back stronger. Resilience isn't about avoiding setbacks. It's about using them as fuel for your growth. Conclusion. As we wrap up this journey of forcing yourself to take action, one thing should be crystal clear. Consistency is the key to unlocking your potential. We've talked about systems, momentum, and resilience, each piece playing a pivotal role in ensuring you stay on track. But without action, none of it matters. You can build the best systems, you can be as motivated as ever, but if you don't take that first step and then keep taking it every day, nothing changes. Success is not found in grand gestures or bursts of inspiration. It's found in the small, consistent actions you take when the excitement fades, when the challenges arise, and when you want to quit. But here's the most powerful part. Each time you take action, no matter how small, you're proving to yourself that you can do it. You're building trust with yourself, one step at a time. You're reinforcing your ability to face challenges, to learn from mistakes, and to keep moving forward even when it feels like the world is pushing you back. The setbacks and obstacles, they don't define you. How you respond to them does. If you use them as opportunities to grow, you'll continue to move forward no matter the obstacles that stand in your way. So, I challenge you, stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for the ideal conditions. The right time to take action is now, today. Whether it's a tiny step or a bold leap, take action. Build momentum, stay consistent, and when setbacks come, remember that they are part of the journey, not the end of it. You have the power to achieve everything you want, but it all starts with one simple decision: to act. You've got this. Now go and make it happen.